All right, YouTube, our favorite friends and our most stalwart allied nation, Saudi Arabia, are begging the United States not to elect Donald Trump. That's probably because the person that he's going to be facing off against is a longtime friend of their oil baron ways, plays nicely with the Saudis, received all sorts of wonderful millions of dollars of donations to the Clinton Foundation. That's right, folks, Hillary Clinton is in league with the Saudi Arabians. Now, I find this funny because the Democratic Party pretends to be the party of religious tolerance. We have to have gay rights and women's rights and all of these. We have to be equal. We have to play nice with one another. Don't offend anyone. Be squeaky clean. That's sort of their brand and image in the post-90s era. And yet at the same time, somebody like Hillary is directly financed by, directly friends with the Saudi Arabians, who think that there's nothing wrong with killing gay people. You can throw them off a building, you can stone them, you can chop their heads off. It's all good. It doesn't really matter. You can draw and quarter them. You can just skin them alive or something. Lesbians, same thing. I don't see a problem with gays and lesbians, but I guess on a religious basis they do. And here's where the left has difficulty. They can't choose whether defending Islam for being a foreign religion is more important, or whether defending women and gays from being randomly beaten in the streets is more important. This has been a problem. I find the hypocrisy in Europe among the left astonishing. That is, that they say you're an evil Nazi racist bigot if you don't want more people to come in from Arabia and Islamic parts of Asia and East Africa. But at the same time, you're also a Nazi bigot if you don't completely, you wouldn't absolutely bow down before a hail of bullets to save a gay person or a woman from being inconvenienced. And I find it funny. I just don't understand it honestly enough. And that's why these movements tend to attack one another and eventually destroy one another as well. It's why social reform isn't happening, because they've taken up self-contradicting lines of reasoning. Not that the right's any better, honestly, on Christianity versus all their other sacred cows. It's kind of the same thing in a different way, so to speak. But at the same time, I find it funny that the Saudis would be in any position at all to tell us what we should and should not do during our elections. They're not even a democratic nation. They're a monarchy. What the fuck do I care about what King Salmon has to say? King Salmon, he looks a little bit like a fish. He's got like those weird jowls hanging down. He looks kind of greasy-faced. He's an older dude. He looks sort of like a fish that's been dragged up out of the muck and is starting to dry out or something like that. So I think his name certainly fits him. But the House of Saud loves to meddle in our political process. The Supreme Court made it easier with Citizens United, so they can just pump money into any random asset they have in the United States and then pump that money into a PAC somehow. It's very easily done. Let's not pretend for a moment that foreign money does not influence our elections. So when I see a nation that's the foremost state sponsor of terror, it's not a democracy, it's a monarchy, which, the British are kind of the same. The fact that they retain their monarchy still amuses me too, since they're all inbred and they're not even from the proper lineage to lead their nation, but whatever, okay. I guess it doesn't fucking matter. Just keep disgracing your nation. So they're not a democracy. They're sponsor terrorism. Osama was a Saudi. Osama bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia. He was not some native Afghani or Pakistani. He wasn't from Somalia. No, he was a Saudi Arabian from the same noble lineage. When they tell the American people to do one thing, the right thing to do is probably the other. The Saudis have invested several $1 million in Hillary Clinton. So they have a vested interest in her becoming the next president of the United States. Funnily, because she is female, and if she were in Saudi Arabia, of course, that means she would be wearing a burqa, she wouldn't be able to drive on her own, and yet she has nothing but praise for the Saudi Arabians. Something bad happens in Saudi Arabia, she will casually remark about it, they'll give her a check, and she'll shut up the next day. That's been how it worked. In the past, the Clintons are notorious they were getting money from the Chinese. When she says she's going to be hard on the Saudis and the Chinese and so forth, I laugh. I roar with insane laughter, because if you remember anything about the 90s, you remember who was funding the Clintons in the first place. They haven't stopped funding them. It's become easier now for foreign states to meddle in our political system, not harder for them. So if they were basking in slush funds before, they're getting twice as much money now, probably 10 times as much money. Hillary Clinton's not going to crack down even slightly on Chinese hackers or Chinese currency manipulation or the Saudi Arabians trying to hold oil captive or something like that. She's not going to do bullshit about it. Doesn't matter what they do. They could invade their next door neighbors and commit outright genocide, and she would barely even say anything. She wouldn't even condemn it. She'd come out and say, oh, well, I think this is regrettable. The next day she wouldn't say anything at all because they'd already have cut her some sort of check. Here's $500,000, Miss Clinton. Don't say anything more that is bad towards us. She probably holds them over a barrel as much as they hold her over a barrel, by the way. It's a little tit for tat. She knows if one of these states does something too bad, she can always make a little muttery comment about how bad it is, and they'll cut her a check. Wonderful for Mrs. Clinton, terrible for the United States if she's the president of the United States. It's as simple as that. She is controlled by those who bankroll her campaign. Goldman Sachs, Ted Cruz was too, by the way. Everyone on Wall Street, all the major banks, the Saudis, the Chinese, all of these other states, the Russians to an extent. You know, I believe there was a story a few years ago while she was still Secretary of State where a Russian conglomerate ended up gaining control over an enormous amount of U.S. uranium. And it was in part, I believe, brokered by Miss Clinton. Oh, I wonder if she's going to be hard on Putin, too. No, she'd be his best friend because she's as corrupt as he is. See, Donald Trump will be his best friend, too, because they both enjoy playing the game, grand chessboard, try not to get nuked. Hillary Clinton, though, she's more in it for the money side. You know, Putin is sort of the best and worst, honestly, of both worlds. He's in it for both the financial and power gain, as well as for the excitement, I guess, of playing, you know, GoldenEye 007 real life or something like that. I think he enjoys it. I think Hillary doesn't give a shit about that because she doesn't see the United States as important, except insofar as it's a piggy bank for her. That's the only reason that the Clintons ever cared about the United States to begin with. They don't care if their policies negatively impact people, or they wouldn't have had the federal 3 strikes rule. You wouldn't have had the continuation of the retarded drug war. Clinton even admitted that he smoked weed. He just didn't want to admit he had inhaled that horrible devil's weed cannabinoid vapor. These people are idiots. They don't know how to run a country. They can't even run their own finances. They're making $500,000 a speech, and yet they supposedly leave the White House broke. I feel so bad for her. Broke for the Clintons is we only have 4 houses instead of 5 now. We only have $10 million in total assets instead of $200 million. Woe is us. We're just common people trying to get by, trying to get to work. We got to get our work in and get ourselves saved, but Jesus. That's retarded if you actually believe that. I hope that there is nobody subscribed to my channel who would describe Hillary Clinton as honest. You may think she's the lesser of all evils. You may think, okay, her experience is fine. I'm just going to settle for Hillary. Okay, I don't agree with you. I think that you're making a terrible, tragic mistake, but, you know, I can tolerate that. I can respect that, I guess. But if you actually think that this woman is honest, as in she has ever told the truth on any major issue, where she was implicated as even possibly doing something wrong, then I've got a lot of swampland that I want to sell you, and I'm not making a joke about that. It's right in the middle of the Atacama. You know, you can't possibly think that this woman is honest. Please don't tell me that anyone here is gullible enough to think that. By the way, I'm not taken in by Trump. I fully comprehend the fact that he has manipulated most of his supporters. He's not going to mass deport people that are in this country illegally. It's not going to happen. We're probably not going to move to a flat tax system. But at the same time, I understand that anyone in politics, whether they're a politician or, as he is, self-funded, will end up having to do that. It's rather unfortunate that our political system is like that nowadays. But at the same time, has Trump made a career primarily out of lying to people and manipulating them, or has he primarily made a career out of selling rental properties to the Chinese, among other people? Oh, it's the latter. See, the problem is the Clintons never did that. They never created a job. They just destroyed them. So I can have more respect, regardless of what I think about his character in many ways, or his policies. I can at least respect that Trump has actually done something with his life that does not involve getting slush fund donations. The Clintons have not. The Clintons have done absolutely nothing. Hillary Clinton was fucking making jokes about getting a child rapist off the hook, knowing what she was doing. She's just a horrible, all-around indecent, retarded person. And I think she would probably go down as far, far worse than somebody like George W. You may not think so now. If she were to get elected, she'd be worse than George W. She's just as warmongering. She voted for his fucking war. She's just as pandering. She was against gay marriage before she was for it, so to speak. You think John Kerry panders and changes his mind and flip-flops a lot? John Kerry has nothing on Hillary Clinton. So, I know I got off on a Hillary Clinton tangent. I can't help it. As far as the Saudis, though, they're basically the same. They do the same fucking shit. They don't even care about their own religion. The House of Saud isn't comprised of a bunch of religious zealots. It's comprised of a bunch of very wealthy monarchs / businessmen. That's what the House of Saud is. They're drinking and having orgies in their palaces. They're not like what you would consider fundamentalist Muslims actually following the tenets of the Quran. They're also not as warmonger. They don't care about all these wars. They're willing to start a proxy conflict, but they'll never get into it themselves. They're cowards. The House of Saud is run by cowards. They don't want to get into a war. They don't want to get their ass pushed in by some much smaller state and look like cunts when they do. They'd rather have a bunch of terrorists do their work for them. And they sponsor them all. They sponsor Al-Qaeda. They sponsor ISIS. They sponsor every single, unless it's a Shia militia, in which case it's backed by some combination of Tehran or Assad. If it's a Sunni militia, the Saudis have control of them, lock, stock, and barrel. When ISIS threatens the Kaaba and says, oh, it's an idolatrous place, they're not going to attack the fucking Kaaba, you moron. People took that seriously. They said, oh, look, the Saudis don't actually control ISIS. They want to attack big tourist attraction Mecca. Yeah, I'm sure they do. I'm sure that was an actual ISIS member, and he totally wasn't paid $50 US to say that by some Saudi agent so that he could put it on an iPhone, upload it to YouTube, and exonerate his whole nation. I'm sure that nothing like that's ever possibly happened in the history of mankind. Nothing like that could... No, of course, it was just a homegrown, crazy terrorist, totally no ties to Saudi Arabia. Okay, I believe it. No, I don't. The Saudi Arabians control ISIS. The Saudi Arabians control Al-Qaeda. By the way, I feel sorry for the average Saudi. They're not exactly sharing in the great riches and wealth of their country. The House of Saud gives them breadcrumbs to keep them quiet, to keep them in line. You know, it's almost like communalism. You know, they're all sort of equally lower middle class, we would term it. They're not starving. That's great. That's development, at least to some degree. Most of the wealth, though, is frittered away by people who make Putin's lifestyle look like that of a beggar, let's face it. Or they make Obama look like an extremely impoverished individual. The House of Saud lives in such absolute luxury, you probably couldn't even comprehend it. We're talking Donald Trump, by comparison, looks like an impoverished individual. And just think he's he's a billionaire. So, yeah, I don't care what the Saudis have to say about our election. The House of Saud doesn't even speak for the average Saudi. So why the hell would I care what they think? I don't care what some monocultural nation, monoeconomic nation that thrives just on oil. I don't really care what they think. They don't have any idea about fiscal things, obviously. All they do is sell oil. They don't have any idea on cultural things. They're somewhere to the right, on like gay rights and abortion, they're somewhere to the right of Adolf Hitler. And on fiscal topics, it's like, kind of just redistribution, I guess. Sort of nationalize everything and then redistribute it. It's just retarded. The House of Saud has absolutely no reason to weigh in on our elections. You know, if I talk about like a British issue, some British anarcho-punk, some toothless idiot will come and call me an idiot for remarking on that. And yet the people in the House of Saud, they're like theocrats and monarchs. They have nothing to do with democracy or a republican system of government. They weigh in, and some of these same people say, oh yeah, that Trump, ho, he sure is evil. Yeah, like the House of Saud is good by comparison. that oversees a culture in which women can't even drive on their own, where if you're even a little bit gay, you know, you sucked a dick just once and you get your own dick chopped off, shoved down your throat, dragged through your intestines, and then you get chopped in half. Oh, yeah, nice, tolerant, diverse society. You see, it just doesn't make sense. This stuff is retarded, quite frankly. And by the way, to those who criticize my use of colorful language, grow up. Live in a grown-up world. You're going to hear a lot worse in your lifetime. If you feel offended, you don't need to be on my channel. You can go watch Barney. Or you can go watch some other little kid channel. You can go watch Arthur, where, you know, pee-pee is a bad word, or poo-poo, or something. I know there are people out there who believe this. My channel's probably not the right one for you. I'm not going to sit here self-censoring, second-guessing every fucking thing that I say and say, did I say fuck in this video? I'm so sorry. It might offend somebody's sensitivities. I just don't give a hell. I don't care whether you're offended by my use of language. Doesn't matter to me one bit. It's not detracting from my message. 99% of the people viewing my channel don't care. It doesn't matter if you think that it offends you. That's your problem. You either stop being offended or you can find somewhere else to lurk. I really don't have time to... I've got bigger things to talk about. I've got bigger things to think about. I got too many books to edit, too many videos to make, too many people's messages to answer to really care about one person being offended by the word fuck. It's just not going to happen. That's about all. Peace out.